Welcome to another session of Relationship Revolution. We've talked about lots of principles. Now we're going to talk about the overall principle of training all the other skills. So train to overcome adrenaline. If you will, I said in one of the earlier sessions that interpersonal skills, communicating with another person, is an adrenaline sport. For years, I trained adrenaline sports, and then when I got into reconciliation mediation, I noticed that people respond to challenging disagreements the same way they respond to going over the edge of a cliff on a rappel, being stuck in a tight space in a cave, or going over a waterfall on a whitewater river. They have the same physiological responses. So we train these being quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to anger, speaking the truth in love, loving your neighbor as yourself, and loving the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. We train those adrenaline sports just like you train any other adrenaline sport. Let's walk through that. I'm going to give a summary and then I'm going to talk through each one. First is you have to learn to breathe well. Next, you develop good habits in easy circumstances. You add challenge to your practice sessions to develop skill, but you reduce challenge to your practice sessions to solidify skill. You end each training session with a success, and you expect to have to make a conscious effort for at least 2 years. Yes, it takes a long time to develop adrenaline sport skills. And here's the one that's really hard. It might take years for people to trust that you have changed after you've already changed. Let's go back through that list one at a time. Breathe well. I talked about this earlier in the Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength session. I'm just going to do a quick recap. Breathing is the one body function that your autonomic system and your brain share. In other words, you breathe without thinking about it, and you can also think about it and change the rate of your breathing. So when your adrenaline dumps into your body and starts taking over your body, if you can get control of your breathing, then you can yank back control of your brain and do the things you know you should do rather than just let your adrenaline run away with your natural responses. Practice breathing. And you combine that with the scriptural meditation. Practice breathing while you're quoting scriptures. And then, when an adrenaline event happens, you've trained in quiet times. And I'm just going to use breathing and quoting scripture for all of these training sessions, but it works for listening, it works for speaking the truth in love, all right? So here's how I learned to breathe well. I started in very quiet moments early in the morning. In through the nose, out through the mouth. By the way I learned the in through the nose, out through the mouth thing is my wife was pregnant and she was on a backpacking trip in Colorado. She just happened to be on the trip with a nurse anesthetist who's an expert in breathing. And he told her that breathing in through your nose and out through your mouth is the most efficient way for your body to bring oxygen in and take carbon dioxide out. So, in through your nose, out through your mouth. That's how you practice. So I practice memorizing scripture. You, O Lord, are a shield about me, my glory and the lifter of my head. Let her only be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to anger. I even started practicing breathing in as slow as I could and exhaling as slow as I could. So I got for a while where I could inhale for about 20 seconds and exhale for about 20 seconds. I just played with it just to get so that I could really control my breathing. All right, so you develop those good habits in easy circumstances. I said I did it in quiet. Well, you add challenge to develop skill. So then what I did, I started going to grocery stores and walking around. If I had to go shopping, I would practice breathing in through my nose and out through my mouth the whole time that I was grocery shopping, all right? That's a little bit more of a challenging environment than sitting by myself on the sofa. Now at that time I was in adrenaline sports, so I would go paddling on a river and practicing breathing. All I would focus on is practice breathing well the whole time I'm paddling, in through my nose, out through my mouth. I would also practice when I was rock climbing and rappelling. There for a while I would go get on an easy climb and practice breathing in through my nose, out through my mouth, in through my nose, and then I could gradually get on harder climbs and control my breathing when I was on harder climbs. Now, the principle So that's adding challenge to develop skill. However, there comes a point in almost any skill, a situation that is so challenging that you kind of revert back to your natural ways of doing it. Well, you kind of have to push to that point. So when I was learning to breathe well, in through my nose, out through my mouth, when I got on really wild rivers or really challenging climbs, I would get partway in the middle of them and realize, oh, I've been breathing poorly. So I would do the next step, reduce challenge to solidify skill. So I'd go back a level of challenge and get to where I could breathe well in those levels. And then I would go push the envelope of the challenge again. And every time you push the envelope and find a failure point of the skill, if you will, you kind of get to where the failure point moves into more challenging environments so that it takes more challenge to stress your body. So I got to where I could breathe in through my nose and out through my mouth in pretty challenging circumstances. One time, and this is when I knew that the training had finally paid off. I was driving along a highway, my whole family in the car, and we came into this huge storm. I mean, all of a sudden, zero visibility. The car light in front of me slammed on their brakes and went red, and my instant thought was, "You, O Lord, are a shield about me, my glory, the lifter of my head." And I have proof of this because I did it out loud. I said it out loud, and I stayed calm and responded very well. And I was very excited. So we came to a complete stop. All the traffic came to a complete stop. And actually, we were kind of concerned that we were in a tornado. So I kept saying that prayer, that thought. I kept breathing well. I turned around and got my family praying and breathing well. We all stayed pretty calm during that storm. And it passed. And as the storm passed, we looked ahead, and there was this huge tree down across the road, 2 cars ahead of us. If I had not responded calmly and well, we would have had a pile-up wreck on that highway. These principles work. Meditating on Scripture and learning to breathe well in harder and harder and harder and harder circumstances does make it so that you can go into a business meeting where you're talking about very challenging, painful things and stay calm and stay hopeful and breathe well. Well, so you add challenge to develop skill, you reduce challenge to solidify your skill, and then you go back and add challenge again. But at the end of a day, when you're finished practicing, always end on a positive note. I've heard basketball players say who were practicing free throws, you always end on making a free throw. Don't miss a free throw and walk away. Always end on a positive note. In the rock climbing world, the way we would do that, if we were working on a really hard climb and none of us got it that day and we were just really pushing the envelope as hard as we could, before we went home that day, we would go do a really easy climb. And we would do it with very good form and technique and breath control. And then we'd go home. You just end on a positive note, reminding yourself that you do have some skill. And then that painful part, how long does it take to get so that you can listen well under duress? I think it takes about 2 years of focused practice. It takes probably 5 years to get really skilled at it. Wow. And then this last principle, it may take years for people to trust that you have changed. I really learned this. I had anger problems, and that's another story I'll talk about in the forgiveness session. And my wife, after I became a much more gentle person, one time we went to the calendar and we're starting to look at our schedule, and my wife got upset with me and started speaking to me in conflictual tones, let's say. And I said, all of a sudden, honey, I'm not sure what I have done that is causing this conversation to be so challenging for you. And she stopped. And she thought about it. She said, "You haven't done anything. As a matter of fact, I really appreciate the way you've done this calendaring time with me. I think what's happening is just stepping in front of the calendar has triggered my memories of the way we used to have calendaring together and what a jerk you were, David, in calendaring with me, 5-10 years ago. And for some reason, just now stepping in, I am back in 5 and 10 years ago in my emotions." We called that phantom fuming. We just named it. It's interesting. Smells will trigger a memory from years ago of what used to happen, but many times people will interact with you as if you have yet to change, even after you have already changed. Really, you just got to know that's coming. And that's part of your restitution to those people for the way you used to treat them, is giving them grace to take time before they start interacting with you as if you are a changed person. It's challenging. I'm rooting for you. You can do it. You can learn these skills and many others in my book, Muddling Along Our Unity, Confessions of a Recovering Jerk. It's available at Amazon.com in print, Kindle, and audio form. So to learn how to practice these principles with me, go to dialoguedojo.com.